With a June 30th deadline looming for adoption of a state budget, the New Jersey Legislature has defied Governor Phil Murphy and passed their own spending plan. Joining me on this edition of Hudson TV's Political Insider View to discuss the situation is State Senator Nicholas Sacco. Senator, thank you for joining us on HudsonTV.com. The state budget is the issue that I want to talk to you about. The state legislature has passed its own budget, 2117 in the Senate and 4628 in the Assembly. Governor Murphy has indicated that he most likely is going to veto the state legislature's version of the budget. First of all, how did you vote and why?
There were two major bills involved. One was the corporate business tax and the budget, and I voted no on both. I decided that the governor has a right to have a budget that he approves of, and that it was too early because we've negotiated into July at times. Normally, we're at the last hour. I've spent in the last 24 years all night in Trenton, sometimes sleeping in a chair while people are negotiating. And, I've been there last year with stitches in my face, on Percocet, because I just had surgery that day. And, I've gone on. This is not something new to me. And to say that we're in a crisis a week out, it's not a crisis. A crisis is when you're closing in on July 1st and the government may close. So I felt there wasn't enough negotiations going on. And I want to give the governor more time to look at this budget. There are things in the budget which I disapproved of. I didn't vote for the school plan. Not that it wasn't better than the plan we have now, but the plan that was in that budget hurts Jersey City, Hoboken, and Weehawken. They end up losing money over 7 years. Jersey City will lose over $100 million. And the governor's plan is to keep them at least status quo where they are. It means some other towns don't get as much, but you don't destroy a town. You just can't. Even if the town has a decreased enrollment, you take that money away, and you're going to be laying people off, and a lot of things are going to happen that are not good for children. So I didn't like many aspects of the budget. The corporate business tax, there were questions about. Some of the businesses felt, they didn't realize that it was a lot more money than they thought. And they began to balk at it as time went on, and they realized what it would do, and they really got to analyze it. So I wanted to give the governor more time to review this, and I'm not sure what he's going to do. He has a number of choices. One is to veto it outright and force it back. Another one is conditionally veto items in it and force us to vote on yes or no. And I guess
there's
the last
bad scenario.
There's the scenario he could turn around and accept the budget and start lying on and vetoing things right out of it. I mean, we've had that happen with the Chris Christie. We would put things in the budget. We think it's signed and ready to go. He signs it and he goes over and takes over women health right out. Any Democratic platform inside that budget disappeared. So
okay, let's go into some more specifics. You've started to mention some of the things. The governor's proposed budget is $37.4 billion. The legislature's that was approved by the two houses is $36.5 billion. The disagreement seems to be over which taxes should be raised. The governor wants more than $1.5 billion in tax increases, which includes a millionaire's tax and putting the sales tax back at 7%. It's currently 6.625%. Both Senate President Sweeney and the Assembly Speaker Coughlin want a corporate business tax rate increase up to 13% on the larger corporations in the state of New Jersey for a 2-year period. You've started to talk a little bit about that. Just your thoughts on the differences with regard to the taxes on the two sides, what the legislature is talking about doing and what the governor is talking about doing.
Well, the problem is you're using figures. You don't know which figures are real. You're getting figures from all sides. How much will come in? For example, yesterday the Supreme Court made a major decision about the internet sales tax. You know, some people are saying that's worth $400 million. Some people are saying it's worth $300 million. So
Okay, that being that even if a corporation does not have a presence in the state, if you buy something online, they could charge the tax for it, and that would add revenue into the state.
Some people say 3, some people say 4. So in all these figures, there's a lot of questions about which is the real figures, who has the grasp of the right figures. So when they're off that far apart, supposedly, they may not be off that far apart. You don't know exactly how much you're going to raise in certain bills. There are times bills have been put in that didn't raise anywhere near what they were supposed to raise, and end up with a budget shortfall at the end. Even though the budget is balanced, it's balanced on fake numbers. So there's a lot more that has to go on with these negotiations to really to get a grasp of where the money is coming from. The corporate business tax also, the phase in, phase out. You know, that means when the governor is running again, he has to start raising taxes again because it phases out. So it's a bad thing to do to a governor of your own party, to force him into a situation that he doesn't have a stable mechanism for financing the budget.
Let me ask you about one other area that we haven't touched upon yet, where the governor seems to have a little bit of a disagreement, I guess, with the members of the legislature. Transportation, New Jersey Transit specifically. He says he's funding a lot in the budget for improvements to NJ Transit, whereas he claims the legislature doesn't do as much. Your thoughts on that?
Okay, here's what the legislature did. Not until all the safety mechanisms are in, the ones that control the trains, that they automatically will stop if there's a problem. The money doesn't kick in until they're all in place. They may take a year to get in place. So we're talking about money we've going to give to transit with a condition on it that they reach the federal timeline given them. If they fail to do that, the money can't be spent by them. So none of the improvements will take place over the next year. So, you know, neither side is perfect on it, but the fact is that you want the money. Transit's in bad shape. Chris Christie destroyed transit. So money has to get back in there, and you put a condition on it that they know they can't reach. They cannot get these mechanisms in place in time to make money in this budget.
Governor Murphy, you just mentioned former Governor Christie. Governor Murphy basically is accusing the legislature with their budget that they've now approved as being gimmick-like, Christie-like, one-shot revenues. I gather you don't have that same opinion.
Oh, no, it is. I didn't vote for it. There's gimmicks all over the budget. They're saying there's not, there are. There are things that sunset and then create problems later on. There's no stable source of, there's a lack of stable sources of income. Now, I don't love the sales tax, but the sales tax used to be 7%. It's almost invisible with the 6.62% to 7%, you know, but it brings in millions of dollars. So the fact is that you leave it stable. What they did in the past is by cutting it back, they left a hole in the budget. There was no reason to do that. People accepted 7%. Giving it back because you had the Transportation Trust Fund, you know, didn't make people feel any better about the Transportation Trust Fund. But now they're saying, oh my God, there's a sales tax increase. Really talking about going back to where it was. And it's such a small amount when you go out shopping, that's small percentage. And if it's a stable source of income you can count on, you just can't count on things going up and down. And that's what this budget does. It's almost set up for Murphy to fail later on.
Okay, but you feel that with about a week or so left to go before the June 30th midnight deadline. There is still time for negotiation where the two sides, the legislature and the governor, can come to a compromise and reach an agreement on a budget that will not force a second consecutive summer of a state shutdown in New Jersey, meaning you would have state parks closed, state beaches closed, state employees not being paid over July 4th.
There's time to correct it. I've been here with 2 shutdowns. I've been here overnight where they got fixed in the morning, so there was no shutdown. They were just sleeping all night in the State House and then voting again in the morning. So I've been here through this. This is heading into crisis time. The crisis comes at the end of the week when you may have to shut the government down, and then we'll be there every day until we iron out what has to go on. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully we reach an accord, because who's going to get blamed for the shutdown? The Democrats. We're all Democrats. That's what's so sad about this. We're Democrats. The last time this was really done, was with John Corzine, who closed the government down, the Democrats in the Assembly. Who got the blame? The Democrats. So we're looking at a situation where people are running next year in the Assembly, and who can be pointed at? The Republicans are pointed at the Democrats for closing the government down. Even though they won't vote for much of what's in it, and maybe causing it, they still don't get the blame. The people in charge get the blame, and that's the governor and the legislature, and all of us are Democrats, so it's a bad thing to happen to us.
Senator, thank you for giving us your thoughts on the state budget situation and for joining us on Hudson Political Insider View.
Well, let me say this. I'm glad to see you back in broadcasting. I missed you, and you've always had a great relationship with me, and I'm very happy to sit here with you, being interviewed.
Thank you. The governor can now veto the legislature's $36.5 billion budget or make line item vetoes. What is certain, however, is that time is running out for both sides to come to an agreement in order to avoid a second consecutive summer government shutdown. In North Bergen, for Hudson Political Insider View, I'm Jeff Henig.